right. The technology is not failing me so far. All right. With that said, stick until the end. We have info on the Vegas giveaway. So if you're a member, you may have seen the application page for this. I will send it again. If you're not a member, there's an opportunity to jump in. So there's your hint. Just as importantly, this will kind of give you a roadmap. So try not to feverishly take notes and kind of lose track of being focused on this, because you get kind of a guidebook that summarizes all three phases. If you jump off early, no, I'm not sending it to you. Sorry. This is for those that stick till the end. Susan from Oak Bluff. Very nice. All right. So that's the promise, to deliver those two things at the end. But in the meantime, we want to answer this question. What if everything you've been told about weight loss is only part of the story? And that's why you keep ending up at the start of your story, not the end. You don't even get to the climax of the story. We don't want that. Okay. Sorry, I'm distracted by the wait list here. Whoops. Waiting room. I guess that's a downside of having to click too many things at once. All right. Moving on. You've only been given 1/3 of the answer, I would argue. And I was handed that 1/3 of the answer quite a bit early on, right? I started this whole process at, I think I was 260 something, somewhere in that range. And I lost 20 pounds 3 times, give or take. And I always thought it was me. It was willpower, it was discipline that was lacking. And really, it was because I was missing the exit strategy and the phase 2 to this process. Okay. So that changes tonight for all of you on here. And don't forget to hydrate. I'll be doing that as well. So what you're about to discover, the real X factor is muscle. And that is really what gets lost in the pursuit of weight loss in more ways than one. The 3-phase system, so the complete framework that's going to end this cycle of losing and gaining. And then the real obstacles beyond the ones people all have in their head, we're going to sabotage and destroy those one by one. But there are real obstacles that we're going to also help you fix. And then again, I talked about the Vegas challenge. That ties it all together, because frankly, most people can piece together a plan. They're just not consistent to it. And that's what we try to fix. Oh gosh. Wait list. There we are. Okay. So before I was coach, like I said, I was the client, not carrying around a few extra pounds. It was obese. I hit all the standards for BMI over 35 or whatever it was. And even my doctor at the time said, well, you probably have to make some changes. And I heard it and went in one ear and out the other. And eventually I tried all the things, the quick fixes, the ketos. That actually ended up in the ER with the bowel obstruction from that one. So I did it really wrong. A lot of cardio. I even got on a real running kick. I was doing like half marathons, running 10 miles a week. And still, I'm like, what gives here? Why do I still have man boobs? Right? I mean, this doesn't seem fair. And I kept thinking the problem was me, willpower, discipline, good old genetics, right? We all use that one. It never occurred to me that the problem might be the approach, not the person following it. Type 1 of this is so far resonating. So this is the cliffhanger. I've already shared this publicly, but back in 2011, my cousin bought steroids online. He was doing them. He was blowing up. So I tried them too for an 8-week run, and I got very angry. But I also had one really positive takeaway from this, believe it or not. Taught me something I was not expecting. Sorry, waiting room again. These latecomers, come on. Not that hard to show up on time. There we go. We got some ones. So what did it teach me? Well, first and foremost, it felt a lot easier than past attempts to lose weight. I noticed that, my hunger changed. I was eating more, but wasn't necessarily gaining weight from it. My energy changed. My body was holding on to muscle. I think that was the key factor. That was what was different this time. Yes, the drugs were the stimulus for preserving muscle, but you could do that without the drugs. I just never went about it the right way. So the drugs were raising my metabolic floor because I was preserving more muscle than I had previous dieting attempts, when I lost everything in the process and it set me up for a rebound. So essentially, I've been solving the wrong problem for years before that, just purely focused on the scale, cutting calories, running harder, doing more cardio. Every tool was pointing at subtraction, not addition. So I lost everything in the process. So I liken it to fat loss without muscle building. It's like renovating a house without a foundation. You can have it look good for a while, but eventually it all crumbles back to where it started. Not good at metaphors today. So essentially, I kept the lesson. I stopped doing that, thank God, because I know some people, once they get the itch, once they start, it's a lifelong commitment because you come off the drugs and you lose all the muscle that went with it. But I got back to natural training. I kept the insight ultimately, and that's what really drove me forward. Was the goal was ultimately to build a body that was resistant to a rebound. That requires muscle. That requires a really consistent effort in the gym, and it required a system built around these three phases I'm going to talk about, not being in diet mode all the time. All right. So far, so good. Just a quick thumbs up. Yes, this is making sense. Excellent. Good. Okay. So yeah, ever since that day, I mean, I wasn't a coach right away, but over the last 10 years, I've been a coach, and over 1,600 people have come through CalFit in one way or another. And, you start to identify trends. Who's kept the weight off, who didn't. The pattern is pretty consistent. Almost without exception, we get people into these second and third phases. Those who succeed. Those who regain, stopped at the end of a diet because they lost their 20 pounds and assumed the job was done. And unfortunately, that's only half the battle. So why the three phases built around this Big Five system works, at least for me, at least for those 1,600 people. It's because it goes beyond eat less, move more, which is the tool everyone hears and believes that is the full picture when really it's incomplete. Okay, so you have to consider these 5 habits working in concert, built around 3 phases where eat less, move more actually doesn't become a factor forever. It might be eat more, move more at some points. Okay. Oh, I was going to gloss over this. Most people understand the habits we've installed in the program. I talk about all the time, but you can't out-train or outrun your diet. So cap, calories, adherence to that, protein target, that's really the key. Even in a muscle building phase, we have a calorie surplus built around this framework. You still need to know your numbers. Drink your water, simple but easy. Get your sleep because it's hard to out-train, out-eat, or out-supplement a sleep deficit. And then resistance training, which kind of piggybacks off my big epiphany back in the day is, holy crap, when you have muscle, everything becomes a whole lot easier. And then move daily. And we'll talk about this one because this is one way your body tries to make up the difference. When you do number 1, you have to have 5 match. Because then it's just going to adapt to your calorie restriction by reducing calorie output. And then that's how you get stuck. So we want to hit that step target. All right, so here it is. Quick, brief nutshell. I mean, these are masculine sounding words. You can name them whatever you want, but the shred is where we're trying to dial in fat loss, lose weight around the waist. We want to stabilize at a certain point, which is not the same as maintenance because there's still lots that can be done here. But the big key with that is avoiding, a fast and dirty rebound back to where you started. And then that phase 3 where the muscle X factor comes in, getting leaner without getting lighter on the scale, really sharpening the stone, so to speak. That making sense so far, Type? Yes. Feel free to use the chat to drop your questions. And we'll kind of answer them at the end. There'll be time for that. So phase 1, pretty much everyone understands, I think, the basic premise of what you have to do here. Control calorie deficit, high enough protein to work in conjunction with the weight training to preserve muscle. And it all kind of falls into place from there. Awesome term. You don't want to be here forever. That's the thing. Okay, so we'll talk about in the document I give you at the end, I kind of give some recommended timelines. That said, you have to lose a certain percentage of body weight before you really have earned graduation from this too. Okay, so phase 2, it depends on where you're at in your journey. Like there's so much nuance to this, right? But generally speaking, say you've lost 20 pounds for the bare minimum, even if you want to lose more, we want to stabilize at this new weight, make that your new set point. So at least for 2, 3, 4 weeks, we're eating in maintenance or, a little bit more than maintenance to kind of reset everything, including your hunger hormones, including your motivation, frankly, so that you can take a little step back, which actually becomes a big step forward, so that you can really prime yourself for that next fat loss or shred or whatever you want to call it. And some get here and they're done. And then we shift to Sculpt, which is kind of the bow on top, where we actually polish the stone. This is most of the people you look at on Instagram that look toned, they're spending most of the time here because it's a slow process to build muscle, but it really pays off in both in terms of performance, how you look, and your maintenance calories, which is the big one I want to talk about, because the higher your maintenance, the more likely you'll maintain this new weight, because you can slip up a little bit and it doesn't set you back 3 pounds. Okay. All right. So that's it in a nutshell. Get you to your goal weight. There may have to be a stabilization step or two on the way to that goal weight, depending on how far you got to go. We want to maintain this new weight as your new normal, because there is some science, although I learned last week in Vegas that there's some newer science on set point theory, where your body has this pull to get back to where it once was. It's not so much that, it's the systems your body has that tries to slow down weight loss or gain in both directions. And we're going to show you how to fix that. And then lastly, where the magic happens, where the fun is, where you're starting to lift some heavier weight, you eat more as a result, and you just look leaner without getting lighter, and build up that metabolism once and for all. And spend most of your time there. You can always go back to phase 1 or 2, given certain circumstances, right? Maybe you get a little bit fluffy, you want to lean up. There you go. You can go back to what you know. But you got to get there first. Okay. So everyone wants to know, how do you lose weight? How do you get to your goal weight first? So how do you win phase 1? Napoleon Dynamite would say the lucky ones have it easier, and there's certainly some merit to that. And I just want to use it because I'm a big fan of the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, so that really brought me some joy to put that in here. So the 5 ways your body pushes back. So this is one of the trainings from last week's conference. Most of these I understood, but it's interesting how some of us get more heightened responses. For example, some people reduce their calories and they'll move a lot less without realizing it, like unconscious reductions in daily activity, whereas some people move a lot to make up the difference without even being consciously aware of it. And we'll talk about how you'll know which one of you fall into, but we'll talk about the science a bit. Hunger gets louder. I know for me, in theory, there's some merit to, if you were once 260 pounds like myself, those fat cells shrink, they never fully go away. And so hunger is heightened when you reduce calories, and there is a propensity to regain weight a little bit easier than someone who's always been at a lower healthy body weight, for example. I don't like to lean on that too much because then it gives me an excuse, but there is some real science that some people get hungrier than others when they adapt to a calorie deficit, right? Now, everyone gets a bit of a dip in metabolism, just simply put, because as you lose weight, you're lighter on the scale. So again, that's why we want to push the muscle to preserve that. So you just burn less calories at rest. A lighter body burns less calories. A big body burns a lot of calories. You have a fast metabolism if you're 250, 260 pounds like I was. But there is some other hormonal factors that might slow that down. Anyway, I hate getting too deep in the weeds here. So hormone shift, meaning stress hormones can rise a bit when you're reducing calories. Maybe you're fasting. That's a big one for that. Not to say that's a bad thing, but that could really heighten appetite. Leptin is the hunger control switch. So that suppresses appetite. That can get lowered in the absence of calories. And all that said, sticking with the plan gets harder as a result. Okay. So that's bad news. The good news is we do have more control of it than we realize. The big one is what we call non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So basically all the movement we have throughout our day, when we cut calories, like I said, some people really reduce their movement. They get lazier. And we have to force it if you're in that boat. That can lead to 200 to 600 less calories a day, effectively wiping out that, say, 500 calorie deficit we've tried to create through nutrition. Okay. So you really want to move more. There was some research done years back where they overfed people by 1,000 calories a day. They expected everyone to gain maybe 10 pounds over the course of, can't remember the study length. Some people gained next to no pounds, and some people gained upwards of 10. And the main difference was this. The ones that had a faster metabolism were simply just moving more. As soon as they ate, they had the urge to burn it off. Others just melted into the couch. So you want to be that fidgety guy or gal. The bigger one, though, is just simple adherence, right? The plan works when you work the plan. But if you're doing things that are heightening your hunger, you're not getting enough sleep, your cravings are out of control, maybe you're stress eating because of various scenarios in your life. Sorry, this waiting room is still, people are still coming in. Okay. So all that works against you so that the plan doesn't work as well. So why does your cousin lose weight easier than you? Well, there is some evidence. It already ties into what I've shared, but thrifty bodies hold on to calories more easily, mainly because they're the type that just kind of melts into the couch, like I said. Whereas spendthrift bodies run hot. They just have an easier time burning through the calories they consume, or they just know when to stop eating easier. They just have that switch that kicks in faster than the rest of us. Most are somewhere in between, which is good news because that means there is adaptations you can do. Okay. So the good news is when you control the variables, no matter what your advantages or disadvantages are, and they may be valid, adherence is the wild card. Like there's no slow metabolisms, no hormonal factors if you apply yourself to the plan. So this is research done a little over 10 years ago. So no matter the person's background, metabolism, advantages, disadvantages, when they stuck to the plan, an expected calorie deficit created expected calorie loss or weight loss. Whereas the same thing happened with weight gain. These are all plotted on a chart, all very consistent when the plan is consistently adhered to. So that's good news. That means there's stuff, out of your control that can play a role. But if you take control, you follow a plan, you can absolutely get the same results as that cousin that has an advantage over you, right? Make sense? Quick yes in the chat, just to make sure I'm not whipping through this, overwhelming you. I love it. Okay. Okay, so moving off of the science, a lot of yeses. I like that. So these are the three things I see people say for holding themselves back, and we're going to kind of smash them one by one. Okay, so one is, oh, I've been here before. I'll just end up back where I started. Like language is big. If you say that, you're likely going to follow through on that. You're going to quit, give up, end up back where you started. If say I am someone who cannot keep weight off, you will absolutely be someone who cannot keep weight off. Okay. So we want to overcome that. We want to change that. So yes, you have evidence that you haven't been able to keep it off, but maybe you're handed an incomplete system, or you finished some crash diet that was bound to, end up falling off a cliff. Whereas if you had the right system, you could close that gap. You could follow it just like other people in the exact same shoes as you, same genetics, age, whatever. I'm sure I have an example or two of someone just like you who did the thing, accomplished it, kept the weight off. So if you know it's been done before by someone almost identical to you, that's where to find belief that it's going to be different this time. Okay. Hopefully we're moving on from that one. Next one is metabolism or age. My body just doesn't respond like it used to. It's not really baked in science. When we look at the science, people as old as their 80s can adapt to a training plan, can lose weight. Yes, things are harder. I think we all acknowledge that for various reasons, schedule or otherwise. But it has a critical flaw. Okay. I wrote John and then Jeff. My bad. So this is John. cut off picture, but yeah, he had come in with the same idea that his metabolism was toast in his 50s, yo-yo dieting had done him in, whatever. Nonetheless, we got him to a place where he looked 20 years younger, even though this picture's cut off. Uh, but you see the idea here. Next one, I don't have time. Schedule's too unpredictable. Like we've had, I mean, I can think of at least 3 working moms with 4 or 5 kids in our program who are successful. If they can make it work, I think almost anybody can, which is big. Family's here. Kirsten, I don't know if she's on. We just chatted. She was going to jump in. You know, she's a lawyer, obviously. I guess I didn't share that in the chat here, but and 30 minutes 3 times a week to work out. Right. That's the key here. If people think they need to run, like the example I showed before, she was running 5 days a week, upwards of an hour a day and gaining weight and thinking, what the heck's going on here? When really it was just she was bringing a knife to a gunfight. Running was not the best tool for the job. And she needed to dial in her nutrition and work out with weights, and boom, 11 pounds in 8 weeks. Okay. Same with JR, IT tech. Okay, I didn't know I put that many in, so we'll move on from that. But the big idea here is the Big Five is built for real life. It's not about being a professional bodybuilder or stepping on a stage at 8% body fat. I mean, I work with average people. I'm an average person myself. 2 kids you may hear in the background right now occupying themselves. And the business run and fitness has to fit in there, but it can't be the priority. It can't be the only thing on my plate. But it definitely props everything up. So what it actually looks like, I mean, I've talked about working for 10 years at this, 1,600 transformations now, but I wanted to address this elephant in the room, the peptides, because that comes up a lot. And if I wanted to be like a get-rich-quick millionaire in this space, I'd be what everyone else does in the industry now and like sells peptides with the link, even though they're not doctors. It's crazy, the Wild West that's out there right now. So I wanted to share at least my perspective on this before you guys go buying something off the black market. So first and foremost, proven these do work. GLP-1s, Ozempic would be the one most people are most familiar with. They are just one tool in the toolbox, but they absolutely level the playing field I talked about earlier, where they will reduce appetite in some ways that are uncomfortable, right? Where you get physically ill or you can't have regular bowel movements. Like there are varying degrees of side effects that come with this. There's no free biological lunch, but they absolutely will help you adhere to a calorie deficit because you just simply don't feel like eating. The caveat is they don't fix your metabolism. They just suppress appetite. They certainly don't build muscle. In fact, they may help lose it a little more aggressively than if you were just to diet the normal way. But I think there's some emerging science that as long as you're weight training and you're eating enough protein, which is hard to do on these, then the muscle loss can be mitigated to some degree. Okay, but they don't teach the habits. Like this becomes like blood pressure medication where you're on this forever. And even in Canada, the cost can be pretty prohibitive over time if you're planning to do this for your life. Okay, so keep that in mind. They certainly work, and there's more versions of them coming out, and they may be a helpful tool for someone, but consider pros and cons first. It might be something you have to take forever. Next class is like recovery from joint pain, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence online that these just cure, I don't know, shoulder injury within days. I take all of that with a grain of salt because there isn't much trials, human evidence that they work. There's been studies done in rats where it shows reduction in inflammation and some, muscle repair, injury repair. But the placebo effect is real. I just think back to that study, when was it, in the 80s, where they did an incision on people's knees and then literally just stitched it back up. And the majority of participants thought their knees were cured, even though no work was done internally. So I believe there's a bit of placebo happening with peptides as well, where they think, oh, I'm injecting something. It must be really good. It must be really effective. Paid a lot for this. But we don't know for certain what they're doing for us, nor do we know the long-term effects. So you may have a cousin or cousin's dog who's taken this and sworn by it. I would just take all those anecdotes with a grain of salt. Hopefully, research comes out that shows, oh, they're great. They're going to cure cancer. But so far, I wouldn't be too sure of anything. Okay. Next up is like growth hormone and testosterone, right? These are the big two for performance enhancing drugs. These are the peptide versions, which are more, I guess, less risky than taking actual synthetic growth hormone or testosterone. If you're going that route, definitely go through a physician that specializes in that. But just giving you some names here too. I don't consider myself an expert. I've just been around the block long enough to know and look into things. I wouldn't personally go anywhere near any of these yet, but just keep in mind that you may see stuff and may be tempted because it does sell quite the dream. And they may actually be great. I'm not saying they're not. I just no personal experience. No one that I've worked with has been using these that I'm aware. And it's kind of the icing on the cake, right? If your habits, your training plan is not in place, it's that 5% little edge at the end. Okay. And last but not least, real big disclaimer here. These could be, made in someone's bathtub. We don't know where these sites are coming from. They're popping up every minute. You'd like to think they're from actual compounding pharmacies, but I don't even know how to tell the difference right now. Very limited human data I talked about already. So if you're going to do it through a licensed physician. Compounding pharmacy is mainly in the States, but yeah, getting it from the right source is super important, I would say. Okay. Okay, any questions? That's out of the way. I wanted to kind of open the floor to questions. To use the chat. And then I'm going to call on someone just completely random that is in the program on the chat, but just because I'm sick of talking here. I got lots of people I could talk with. Yeah. Okay, I want a question first. So anyone? Come on. Otherwise, I'm calling on a few people to speak. Going once, twice. Tara, what is the right deficit amount? That'll be in the guide I'll give you at the end. But the most food possible to get results to start. That's the short answer. People get way too aggressive early, and that's why they burn out oftentimes. Because losing 2, 3, 4 pounds a week, if I'm a betting man, I'm not. I would say a good percentage of that, upwards of 40 to 50%, is lean mass if you're going that fast. And obviously that's counterproductive. Cindy, any downside to being in the first phase for a very long time? There's two lines of thought on that. If you're losing weight week after week, there is a point of diminishing returns where we don't want to get out of it. But most people have the odd adherence blip. They end up in kind of a maintenance phase by accident here and there. So we don't really have to program those phases for those people until they get closer to where they need to be. Hopefully that answers that question. Doreen, how to safely increase weights? Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on the tool you're using, but dumbbells you can drop, right? So if it's worst case scenario, you fail, then you just get rid of them. But I generally like to go in small increments and really max out my form and rep range on a lower weight before jumping up. So like a set of 12 with really good form. If I could do 5 more, then I'll probably try to bump up, and I'll probably be safe to bump up. But if not, no. And then you have those little weights you can add to dumbbells, like 2.5 pounds, clips onto the handle part. That would be a real small jump you could make. Okay. Susan, well, I use kind of an advanced calculator for that in our app, but the simplest formula is just to multiply your current body weight by 10 and then 12 and work within that range to start, maybe closer to the upper end of that range initially, but that might end up being maintenance for most. So you kind of assess week to week, right? And we're already doing that with you. So don't worry too much about that. I can show you ours in the back end. Okay. Oh. Lots of questions now coming in that I'm a little bit overwhelmed by, but I'm going to try to answer a few more here. And then we'll bring on someone to talk. Okay, guess. Daughter's a 16-year-old figure skater. Yeah, I wouldn't suggest a major calorie deficit if she's a figure skater, right? Performance would be priority number one. But if you're saying her weight is kind of holding her back from getting to the next level, then that's a tricky one. I don't really like to answer that without context. But I would suggest eating cleaner first, seeing how she responds to more whole foods, protein, that kind of thing. Okay. Oh, Terry, yeah, the difference between phase 2 and 3. Phase 2 is more maintenance, stabilizing our weight, whereas phase 3 is a deliberate attempt to build muscle. So you have to be in a calorie surplus, even if it's a partial calorie surplus, meaning we start with 3 days a week over maintenance calories and 4 days more in maintenance, and seeing how the body responds to that. Right. Okay. Uh, Tara, once you lose the weight, do you suggest tracking forever? I'm assuming tracking food. I would say no to that. But it's up to the person. Some people like the control they get from it. And certainly as you shift into a new phase, you should track to get a sense for what those new targets are before trusting your intuition, because our intuition is usually wrong. But the goal is certainly to get to a place where you're eyeballing things, you're eating more 80% fullness, like listening to hunger cues, like that. You have to earn that, but you certainly want to get there eventually. How long is it? Yeah, that's really hard to answer that one. Phase 1 can take a lot longer for some and not so long for others. Depends on goal body weight, where they're starting from. But there is going to be times throughout where we accidentally go into phase 2. You go on vacation to Mexico at an all-inclusive, you're definitely not in a deficit. So that we count that as like, okay, that's a maintenance phase, right? So generally they can happen by accident. Okay. Sandy, you're the first one on my list. I know we want to just briefly chat about what you've accomplished, because I think it would help people that kind of see the path forward, if you don't mind.
No, okay.
Awesome. So take us back. It's been roughly a year. So where were you before starting? Like, what made you finally say, oh, you know what? I think I need help here. Maybe this Mitch guy knows what he's talking about.
I guess initially I started gaining weight for about a year. It would have sort of happened just, I guess, as my dad got sick and for the next year, and I gained 23 pounds. I tried to lose it by myself, but it didn't really work. My husband had been a part of this program, and something came up, and I said, okay, I'm going to go. You guaranteed 2 to 5 pounds in the first week. And I watched your thing every week and I lost, I don't know, 2 or 3 pounds and decided that I would join.
Awesome. Was there anything you were skeptical of at first? I know you had said you had tried some things on your own.
Well, I was skeptical about whether you could give me exercises that I could do because I had had 2 knee replacements, which was
Mhm.
probably why I didn't join with my husband a few years earlier. And I've had to adapt some things, but it has been manageable. Um, I was supposed to consider Ozempic. I compared the price of what I thought Ozempic would cost and what you were going to charge me, and I didn't think there was that much difference. So I should probably give this a try rather than try drugs first.
Love it. Love it. So what have your results been? That's the elephant in the room. Like what's worked
Um,
and
so yeah,
accomplished?
now I'm down 63 pounds as of this morning. Um, and yeah, no, it's been good. There's lots of good things that have happened, lots of ability to keep up with the grandkids, lots of yeah, just a lot of positive things. Granted, we know there's some negative things because when you have a self-image of being large for so many years, you it's hard to make that mental shift, and so that part hasn't been easy. But
Mhm.
you're working with me, so it's getting better. I hope some days better than others.
Absolutely. That's the harder transformation is the mindset. And we've been working through that. So good for you. That's awesome. So how has it impacted other areas of your life? I think the big thing people always fixate on the weight loss because the health that comes with that, of course. But like, where has it made an improvement in work, relationships, energy, or otherwise, if you don't mind sharing something along those lines?
Oh. Well, I do get lots of questions. A lot of people want to know how I do it. Um, I tell them what I'm doing, what kind of commitment I've made to this program, and so some consider it, but at this point, maybe one or two people have kind of joined the program and said, I'm going to do it. And things like that, I just do naturally now that I didn't do before. Um, like I did go away and on a cruise, and I just had already chosen years ago that if I ever do that, I just walk the steps all the time. And so they were like, how long did it take you so you weren't winded? And I'm like, I don't even know. It didn't take that long. I could go up 8 flights of stairs so that I could get to my room from the bottom of the ship. Um, yeah, I help my grandchild, my granddaughter. She loves to eat chocolate protein powder with yogurt. So that's a treat that she does, and she's willing to sometimes do some exercises with me. So that's been positive, and I think better relationships with other people. Maybe I feel more confident in myself
Mm,
because I feel better about myself.
I love it. Yeah, that's what it's all about. What would you say to someone that's because you were in their former shoes when you first started, not believing that it's possible for you? What would you tell that person? Like, I mean, I think it makes more sense coming from you than me.
Well, I wish I would have done it 3 years ago, to be quite honest. I would have, yeah, it would have been a lot more, maybe a lot easier. I don't know. Um, but I have said to you before, I'm going to be 60 in a few months, and I feel like I'm leaving my 50s better than I came into the 50s. So that's a positive. And yeah, I wish I wouldn't have waited.
I love it. But now we make the next decade better than the last. Beautiful. Well, thanks for sharing that, Sandy. Appreciate it. Well, your check's in the mail for all that ringing endorsement. It was all you. Kudos. Love it. Okay. Anyone else have questions? I do have a little bit more here to share. Obviously, two sides to this. For the clients, hopefully you've got the link from Monday's email to apply for this. It's free to enter. The good, cool part to this, it's not like purely performance driven, right? The best photo wins. Anyone that hits the points threshold, so that just incentivizes you to do the work, to apply that program, gets entered into a draw. So equal standing to win that hotel stay and $200 food credit in Vegas. So I know people aren't going to the States right now. I was there, it was cool. But should you want to participate, definitely register before Sunday because this starts next week. And I think it's just going to add anyone that's done a challenge before knows you just work a little harder, you're a little bit more consistent, you get better results. That's the true prize in the end, but adding a little incentive never hurts. All right. So if you don't have that link, let me know afterwards. That said, for those who are not in, I want to kind of summarize the rest of the program for those, and I see a few that are here as guests, and their name is literally guests, so I know who you are. What does this look like to work together? Well, first off, the three-phase system built for you. So this timelines are going to vary. It's not a cookie cutter thing, of course, but every phase of the journey is built to get you to where you want to go and stay there. Okay. So what that looks like, obviously, I have my custom app for clients where we kind of communicate through there. There's ongoing adjustments, there's real accountability, and it's your numbers calculated for you, nothing generic, nothing Noom or Loom or whatever that stuff is. You're just a number. So we kind of bridge the gap between the technology that exists, it's good technology, certainly to track food and track workouts with actual human being on the other side, giving you support, real answers. And as Sandy said, I think that's been the biggest benefit for her was just having someone to kind of talk through the challenges along the way. So we assess things formally every Monday with a report card. and kind of give you some marching orders and feedback and support you any way you need, blah, blah, blah. This is something I've recently added just to ensure we're uncovering every stone. So if you don't have blood work, we can hook you up with someone that can come to your house. You do pay a small fee for that, but if you have a good doctor, they should definitely run blood work on you every 6 months. In Canada, it's included. And then I personally just look at it from my perspective, for what I understand, and that's, from a fitness, weight loss, performance perspective. We do meet weekly like this on a Q&A. Usually it's more of a theme behind it. Whereas, there's a kickoff call to start the month. So we get everyone clear on their goals. It's workout focus one day, what's cooking Wednesday the next. So that kind of whatever is the focus that week, you can get your questions answered. And then I think this is really what rocks the best is we're a really tight-knit community. We have a retreat coming up in June in Gimli. Most of our community members are in Winnipeg or the surrounding area or have ties to Winnipeg. And I feel the community almost coaches itself, which is neat. It's nice to see how people collaborate. And then we obviously take it to the next level with our challenges and our accountability groups. Like the next one, you'll be put into a small group if you opt into the Vegas challenge as well. Welcome kit. Canada Post is inconsistent delivering that, but there is this as promised when you first start. And then a bunch of guides on good stuff. And then right now we're doing these Lift Lab in-person sessions that you can sign up for. So ensure your form is correct, mainly. But I've found I've done like 8 of these in the last 2 to 4 weeks. And there's always the odd tweak someone can be making that benefits their workouts, magnifies the results, optimizes everything. So big bonus right there. And I'm bringing on Dr. Divi, who's one of my mentors. He's not cheap, so I'm covering the bill for this as much as I can. For a live series, and she really will unlock all the subconscious patterns that are holding you back. That's the big breakthroughs here. I can help with that, but I can teach you the macros and the workouts and try to get you to be consistent to the variables there. But sometimes the mindset needs to come along for the ride, and that's what this is all about. So clients, hope you saw that. She's a rock star. And again, like I said, better odds than roulette. The Vegas prize, should you enter the challenge on the inside, random draw for anyone who hits the points threshold. So 80% compliant to everything. You're in the draw. Pretty cool, I think. And that's the full stack. Great. All right. So just to summarize, I know we have people on here who are already, I'm preaching to the choir. But for those who aren't, I find there's 2 kinds of people that watch these presentations month after month that aren't already in the program. The first one is like, there's always a better time. Maybe after the holidays. This work project's really got me going on after things settle down. But we understand nothing changes until a decisive action is taken. And that's who I'm talking to right here. The second kind just simply decides, I'm not waiting for perfect conditions. I'm ready to rock now. Even though there's X, Y, Z going on in my life, I know the only way this works is if I can actually apply it now when I'm busiest, because then when I'm not so busy, I'll do even better. And that's truly built for a committed person, because I can carry half the bricks, but not more than half. Okay. Makes sense? Just want to leave you with this powerful quote. The healthy man has a million wishes. The unhealthy man has one. Insert woman if you want. All good. But that was the quote as described online. Because when you lose your health, the only wish you have is, I just want to feel better again. I want to feel normal again. We want to avoid this scenario as best we can. Stack the deck in your favor. So what you have to pay now is 30 minutes a day working out. Maybe you got to trade the fries for a salad more often. Maybe you got to hire a coach rather than go on night on the casino if you can't do it on your own. Soft costs, big payoff, but pain later is always worse, I promise you. I know of people on dialysis 3 times a week. They can't even travel. Their quality of life is completely compromised. Or insulin, diabetics, or you've got a cardiologist and a endocrinologist and neurologist. You're meeting with all these experts. But the problem is past the point of preventative at that stage. We want to tackle our health while we can. Preventative health. That is really where I planted my flag. We're any fitness coaches, right? And it's hard because it's not necessarily like a gaping bullet wound at that point. but there is a wound developing underneath, and we want to patch it up before it gets worse. So that's why we do the work now. Okay, that's all I'm saying. All right. Last but not least, schedule this call if you're at all interested. And then I'm going to give you that document, so don't go anywhere. So I have to find all the links for these. Okay, so this is the link to chat with us, either myself, my coordinator, Rob, my mother, the matriarch of CalFit, Nancy, does some of my calls because I can't do all this on my own. So you may be talking to her or myself, but we want to enroll 6 new people this month in May. So those 6 will get onboarded into this challenge. And of course, I talked about the in-person session, the Weight Within series with Dr. Dibby. 10x the value, promise. So go there, do that now, type a yes or no. I'm good either way. All right. So that's it. I think that's all I have. So let me get off this screen so I can share the document I promised. That kind of gives you all a summary. And please don't take this as gospel. There are individual differences, but this at least gives you a quick checklist of what to do in each phase. Okay. So if you open that link, it should open as a PDF. And it's pretty cleanly laid out. Any questions beyond what's listed here, you can feel free to reach out to me privately. And then this is the application for the Vegas challenge. Okay. For members, by the way. Prepare before the horse, you're not yet a member. All right. Any final questions? I'm going to stop sharing. Good. Terry's representing. Is that a Gold Ice hat? Oh, yes. I like it. Almost time. Although it doesn't look like it out there right now. Almost baseball season. All right. Okay. All of a sudden got quiet. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. A million links are in the chat. Should you want to proceed, I see a couple booked that consult already. Good decision. All right. For the rest of you, for the members, I'll see you inside. Don't forget about that challenge. I threw a lot at you this week that we're doing in May, but pick and choose your battles. Talk soon. Cheers.